Hello everyone, I am Braethorn. Welcome to the video, which was previously a stream. Hello everyone who's currently here for the stream. We're actually here for something very special, and I'll tell you why it's special. But the main idea is we have the new Skytech Prism 3. The reason this is special to me is because my first review of a Skytech system was the Prism 2, and a lot has changed in the meantime. We're talking about now a couple generations of CPUs in some cases, new 40 series GPUs came out in the meantime, and a new case. So what we're gonna do is what we always do. We're gonna unbox this thing. I'm gonna show you guys how to do that, what it's like, how it's packed. We're going to get it out and inspect it, take a look at the build, the quality of the build, look for any issues that might be there, call those out. And then we're going to get this thing fired up, and then we're going to set it on fire. Not literally. We're going to be doing all kinds of stress tests to make sure that it is able to cool the processor in this thing, which is a very special one in this one. But the cool thing about the Prism 3 is that you actually have multiple choices of processor and 2 choices of platform to get your Prism 3. And we'll go over some of those, what some of those are, and which ones might be good for you. You have 2 systems. One is Intel, one is AMD. All right. The AMD one is more expensive. It's likely that the X670 motherboard was more expensive, and also the 7950X3D is the most expensive consumer desktop processor on the market, other than Threadripper. So looking at the two, like 7950X3D and 13900K, it can be kind of a tough decision. The 7950X3D can be more efficient than the 13900K, but it also has 8 cores with 3D V-cache and 8 cores that are just like, I guess you could say just their regular 7950X cores, and that those can basically clock higher. But the X3D cores have more cache. That CCD has more cache, so it's great. It's a great system. But that one does cost more because it's a more expensive CPU and likely a more expensive motherboard. So that's a $3,400 system down to $2,999. If you're looking at high end, that's when you would look at Prism 3, right? And then if you look at the Intel ones, it's pretty straightforward. Intel 13900K, RTX 4080, they both have a 4080 on them, both the Intel and AMD systems. Okay, 1 terabyte Gen 4 drive on each. So here's what Skytech did. They said, you know what? We can add more storage. We can put in a 2 terabyte, but we'd rather put that into other parts of the system. And since it's one of the easiest things to upgrade, we'll allow customers to upgrade their own storage. And they're right. Even though I would say any system at $2,000, $2,500 or more should have a 2 terabyte drive, that's a little bit idealistic for me. It really depends on the SI and the deals that they get from their distributors. Margins on computer hardware are razor thin. That's just how that usually goes. It's going to vary from component to component category, but generally speaking, the one thing that I don't really agree with is going to be the 5200 megahertz on the Ryzen system. To my mind, that should be $6,000. You're spending normally $3,400 bucks on the system. It should be optimized. The RAM should be optimized. Like, to me, that's not really an optional thing. That's how it should be. But that's my opinion. It's now $410 off. So there you go. You can get yourself a RAM kit if you want. Now the thing is, with a 13900K system, LGA 1700, the Intel socket that's it. With the 14th gen refresh. And it is just a refresh. So upgrading from a 13900K is really not necessary. There's not really much higher to go than that. There's really not much headroom for upgrading for your platform here, right? Other than, you could upgrade RAM, storage, GPU, standard stuff, but motherboard, processor, pretty much going to stay with what you got there. With the AMD system, socket AM5 is going to be around a few more years with their next gen of CPUs, things like that. So they only guaranteed up to 2025, and we're almost in 2024 now. But they only guaranteed up to 2020 with socket AM4, and they're still releasing CPUs for AM4. All right, so you have more upgradability on this system here. The fact that the Intel one, will outperform the 7950X3D in some games. Not many. The 7950X3D is going to outperform that 13900K in plenty of games. It's going to be lean a little bit more towards that one. Is the difference strong enough to have you spend an additional $300? That's up to you. I will say also there's an upgrade on the cooler for this one. Because it's a 13900K, they go with a 420 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler. So you have a larger cooler on this one.
Why don't we go ahead and get into it and take a look at this thing? Let's go, nerds! Okay, so looking in the box already, this is double bagged, double boxed, and they use Instapak around the inner box just to create an impact resistant layer between the two boxes. So it's not just a bunch of cardboard. So instead of trying to lift it, we're just gonna walk it out. With your original packaging, what do? You keep it. You don't necessarily have to keep the outer box and the extra foam that came with it. But this box and all the styrofoam, the whatever plastic bag is wrapping around the PC, things like that, keep all of that stuff. It can help you later on if you need to RMA the system back to the SI, or if you need to move or something and you need to pack up your PC safely. So you get to see now what you get in the box. So right away, you can see that this is using a Gamdias power supply. Looks like you have your power cord here. You have your, looks like the adapter that you would use for your 4080. If the power supply did not already have native ATX3 12V PWR connector, which this power supply has natively. It comes included. So it's no adapter needed. That's usually how I prefer to do it. And you have all of your PSU cables, which I always want to see. And this, I believe, is for the cooler. Yeah, this is the alternate mounting hardware. And generally with the Skytech system, you're gonna get a mouse and keyboard. Not every SI does this. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the keyboard, but this is the most comfortable free mouse you're probably ever gonna get. Now I'm noticing, and I hope you guys are noticing, quality closed cell foam here, but this right here is rated for multiple impacts. It keeps its shape really well for a very long period of time, and it's resilient. This is the stuff your investment should be packed in. Then just flatten all these flaps down, at least the bottom one. And then as you're flipping it over, go into support the PC once you're doing this part. So before we move on, this is the thing that fell out, this right here. So what this has the, so the case is actually a Gamdias case, okay? Okay, there's all the build instructions in case you were to do this yourself. Okay, so we got our quality control certificate, correct case, CPU, correct memory, all that stuff, just making sure everything's correct from the order, from the BOM, the bill of materials for this system. And then installation, driver, software, Windows version, and activation. I have had this thing for maybe a month waiting for a review, so it could be that the Windows version is slightly out of date. That's on me, not on them. WinStress full system test, Prime 95 CPU torture test, Furmark GPU torture test, and correct thermal performance as a conclusion are all part of the performance testing included with the system. You have the date it was tested, so we know actually when the Windows version was from, and that's September 20th. Okay, troubleshooting guide. Love to see this too, and you can actually follow this because this is what us people who have been doing this for a while is what we do in our heads as we're testing a system. Is it powering on? Yes or no? Then you just follow the flow chart there, and the ending of it is please contact customer support if you have an issue. You just lift up one side, okay, and sort of just pull that out, ease it down, and then do the other side. And then we'll worry about the, oh boy, that is not the bottom of the case, I'll tell you that. You can even put on the edge of the table like that, just to help you get it off of there. And then this is the bottom of the case right here. And then we can undo both of these. This thing is so well protected. Like you cannot, that is irrefutable. It is very well protected, on its way to you. And that can give you some really good peace of mind. Look at this bottom ventilation though. Or I guess it could be side ventilation if you have it on its side. And then just flip this up. like that. Getting caught on stuff. There we go. Voila. There it is. All right. Now, let's be honest here. There's a little bit of influence from other case manufacturers, but that's everywhere. Okay? That happens all the time. It just lets you know that your design is unique and good and people like it. Imitation, highest form of flattery, all that. I'm not sure if product manufacturers feel the same way about that, but it's prevalent everywhere. You can kind of see here where you have the mounting points for the feet if you want to have this in a horizontal configuration there. But there is a weird sort of shape to this to where it is not squared. See that? Yeah. Kind of like a bread box when it's on its side. There we go. Love to see it when the glass can go. Whoa, look at that. It goes all the way back. That is so sick. Then this opens up. You want to talk about access for a build? Look at this. Just like that. Now, as for our top panel, just pops off just like this. There we go. I will say this is probably going to make it a lot easier to get this foam out of here. Now, if there are multiple pieces of foam, you can get yourself a marker and write like one. I have a 1 right here. The next one that comes out, put a 2 on that. Also get a picture of how this looks with everything in there so you can sort of piece it back together if you have to RMA the system in. This stuff does keep it shaped for a long time. But I feel like I'm just gonna be able to just work that out a little bit. And there it, ooh, what? Oh my goodness, look at that. That, my friends, that is a Gigabyte Aero 4080. One of the most beautiful GPUs there is. Absolutely, absolutely gorgeous. And then this one just slides out. I didn't feel any pull on any cables. Be careful when you do it. These can catch on cables mounted onto things on the motherboard and yank out when you pull these out if you do it sort of however you want, just too fast or something. Look at this AIO. Look at this CPU block on the AIO, the pump block. It's just got, it looks like it's a stock cooler or something, but you should get a really good downdraft cooling effect on your VRM, power delivery, all that stuff. That is sick. I want to see this thing turned on. That's going to be awesome. Let's talk specs on this system. This system has an AMD Ryzen 9 7950X 3D. Now that is the highest end CPU that you can get from AMD right now. 16 cores, 8 of those with 3D stacked V cache. Tons of cache on this thing. So you're looking at this one right here was touted as being great for both for content creation and gaming, or just other, multi-threaded processes, productivity, all of that. It's basically going to be a jack of all trades and master of some. So you have an RTX 4080. In this system, this got the Gigabyte Aero version, which is a white and silver card, which matches this build perfectly. However, that is random, and you're not guaranteed to get a white card with your white build. However, it comes out to be a black and white build because they're not using white fans on this. Skytech, gonna dock you some points on that because that was totally in your hands. You could totally have used white fans in this thing. Now, there is plenty of room in this case. We're now going to take a look at the back to take a look at the cable management, see how that went, and just do some standard inspection stuff. Well, actually, I don't know yet. Yeah, look at the cable management in this system. Very good. This could have been secured. I don't know why it's not. This right here, plenty of slack. This actually probably was tucked behind this, like that. See that? It actually is a perfect length for that. So there's this little tab there, which is cool actually, because if you're not like shipping a system, that's totally viable for holding a cable. It could have just gotten shaken out during shipping. But this is just a plastic clip out here where you can just tuck your cables there. Power supply. So we're looking at the Gamdias Helios Gold P2 1000G. And of course we have our radiator here, 360 millimeters radiator with the fans set to exhaust. In sort of like dual chamber cases like this, I don't like to set these side fans as exhaust, okay? The reason is there's a gap between the radiator and the side panel. And here's the fun part. Well, and the reason this should all be intake. So, because you have an intake on your PSU. So, my thing that I usually do for exhaust fans, I remove the filter. You do not need to filter air coming out of your PC. So, this filter makes a lot more sense if you have intake rather than the very weird combination of intake exhaust. So now you kind of have to keep this here, and now your exhaust is filtered, so it has to try and make it through this very fine mesh, and it's not pushed up against it, so it's just gonna circulate through here. And so that was my whole thing with Skytech with the Prism 2, and haven't changed in that regard. It's not just about performance, guys. It's about a quality of life thing. It's about maintenance, longevity. So here we have 3 exhaust fans, and this is why they set those inside fans as exhaust, not intake. Otherwise, the most prominent and visible fans would be showing this. So guys, if you wanted to, you could always invest in reverse flow fans, which are really a thing now. This right here is the Phantom Gaming X670, and it has really good I/O on this thing. So what we have is 4 USB 2.0 Type A, and then we have 4 USB 3.1 5 gigabit ports, so USB 3.0. All right, so that's 8 so far. And then you have 3 more higher speed USB Type A's. It's a little weird the way they present it, but 2.5 gig Ethernet. It looks like it has the holes for the Wi-Fi connectors there, but they're not included. So I guess this motherboard does not, the system did not come with Wi-Fi, but instead it's down here. So you have Wi-Fi included. I would say that that's not good, because that's where, let's say, like a capture card would go. If this thing is good, if the 7950X3D is great for creators and gamers, like people who do both, that's streamers, basically. So now no one should be streaming on Wi-Fi IMO. You should, even if you have to have a 100-foot Ethernet cable go snaking through your house, go hardwired. You have to have consistent upload, period. But if you got to do what you got to do. If you need Wi-Fi, you want good Wi-Fi, and that's where a capture card would go otherwise. But 2.5 gig Ethernet, no SPDIF connector, it's fine. There's a BIOS flashback button, HDMI and DisplayPort on the motherboard, which you're not going to use that. But yeah, after that one, other than that one incident where this thing had kind of, I guess, wiggled itself out during shipping, the cable management is fine. Very serviceable. Yes, okay. I think that's fine. I think it's perfectly fine. Nothing egregious. I mean, heck, they sent me like a $4,500 system once that had just one cable just going across the back, and it was loose and not connected to anything. I'm like, what is this? It's not even, it's like disconnected, it's not connected to anything. So improvements in the cable management department. Thumbs up for that, guys. Now the cable management in the front here is a little bit more all over the place, but not too bad. It's consolidated. I'll give it that. But like you have some of the, when I'm looking at running cables for an AIO, I don't like to split them up. Here you have one going this way and like 3 of them coming this way. They should all go to one direction. That's it. All just together. They could have been hidden behind this. Instead, they're all kind of in a mess right here. They could have gone right behind these tubes, which they ran in a very specific fashion. There's also this fan cable that's sort of, is there not a cable access from the other side? No. You can't get cables in through the top there. You can only bring them in through these grommets or through this right here. There's no opening along the top. So you're gonna have cables coming up here no matter what. But yeah, I mean, I think with the way that the case layout is for cable management, I think it's as good as it can be. Okay, I think I've pointed at things and talked about things enough. I think it's time to power this sucker up. There we go. Look at that AIO though. Look at the block for that. That is one of the sickest pump blocks I've seen for an AIO. I feel like there's a little bit too much empty space in the top. I wish the fans had been mounted on the inside of the case, on the bottom of that bracket, rather than on the top. But the way that they ran the tubes for the AIO, I guess, would have precluded that from being a possibility. Oh no. Oh no. Is that Is that the pump? Okay, for those of you who know PC hardware, okay, the Be Quiet AIOs have the pump in the inline pump. I think this has the same thing, and it's at the top of the loop. No, SkyTech, you were the chosen one. You don't put the pump at the top of the loop. It is not done. You need to either top mount your radiator, period, okay? Top mount the radiator so the hoses by default will have the pump below the radiator, or you run it this way but you have it at the bottom, which is not possible in this case. This needs to be a top mounted radiator if you're going to use this AIO, and if that is the pump, which I'll look up.
So their response is that from here on out, any system where they can top mount a 360 millimeter radiator, they're going to top mount it. That is the result of me going ballistic on that, basically. Any case where they can top mount a 360 millimeter radiator, it will now be top mounted. In cases where they cannot top mount a 360 rad, but they're going to use one, they will not use one with an inline pump. They will use one that has a pump in the CPU block. I checked with them. I asked. I was like, if you're going to top mount all your 360 millimeter radiators, well, out of the supply that you get, the purchases you make, do you have any AIOs that have the pump in the radiator? Because then you have the same problem all over again. It's at the top of the loop again. It's in the radiator. They're like, no, we don't buy those. We don't buy any AIOs that have the pump in the rad. So there we go. Problem solved.
It's just one of those things where, like, there's certain companies where you see them doing things, taking the short route, the easy route, cutting corners, and you're like, yeah, that's them. That's who they are. And that's not these guys. That's not who they are. It's not representative of any impression that I ever have had of SkyTech. I mean, even meeting them, being in their offices, talking with them at any given point, they don't cut corners. What happened to the background? It's like, was it on a vertical monitor before? Whatever, I'll just leave it like that. It's kind of funny. Okay. Because this review kind of went sideways, that's for sure. Okay, so generally we look for bloatware, right? So looking here, you've got GeForce Experience. They pre-installed Google Chrome. Thank you for doing that. We talked about this last time because they're not the only ones that install Google Chrome. Glad to see it. Aside from that, we also have 3 links right here. One is to contact support, one is for product registration, and one is remote support. You at least want to keep the remote support one up there. Maybe this and the contact support. Product registration, I'm not sure exactly what that entails. We could double click it, but I'm gonna leave it as is for now. And then there's Signal RGB and ASRock's AzurGBLED, LED. So you actually have 2 programs in here to control your RGB. I don't know which one is actually being used right now. Well, I won't say I disliked Signal RGB. I was unimpressed when it first came out, but that's because of the very nature of the kind of application that it is, where components are added over time. There was not a lot of support for hardware when it first came out. So I sort of wrote it off and I was like, well, I'll check back on it later. It's way better now. It is way better now. You don't even need to do the full subscription thing, though you can. It is better than it used to be by a wide margin. It's fine with me now. But yeah, let's see if Signal RGB is currently set up to run on here. Yo, it's picking up everything. What? Man, they have improved so much. Good job, Tim and the team. Good job, guys. Okay, we're ready to roll. Let's go. Let me move these over so my dumb face isn't blocking the numbers. Now, this is a 360 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler. Despite my issues with it being in the wrong orientation or placement here, whatever, it has a lot of thermal capacity, meaning I genuinely have to let this run for 10 minutes to let it reach heat soak and actual equilibrium, the maximum capacity for it to cool. Okay, so our last run, those 16 cores are doing their thing. Remember, those ones with 3D V-cache are not going to be hitting the same frequencies as the ones that don't have the 3D V-cache. But it looks like it probably never maxed out at 89 degrees because
it was dropping some frequencies. So our maximum core clock was over 5 gigahertz. But our average was around 4.7 on some of these, 4.6, 4.7. So maximum core clock was around 5714, it looks like. 5714. And that's going to be, you'll see that these right here are your non-3D Vcache cores. These are the 3D Vcache cores. One of the coolest things I think about Ryzen 7000 series is actually not anything to do with maximum core clocks or anything like that. It actually, to me, has more to do with the way that the thing performs when it's in eco mode. Okay, when you take a 7950X and put it in eco mode, you get very close to full power performance at much less power usage, and we're getting to sort of see that in action here with the 7950X 3D. It works amazingly in a more efficient power mode, and that's what we're getting to witness here. Take that, and then on one of those CCDs, put on 3D Vcache for gaming, and you get where the 7950X 3D is at its strongest. Now, the only reason the 7800X 3D would be better for a strictly gaming PC is because you don't have to worry about core parking or any of that. It's just for gaming, productivity stuff, and video editing and things like that are not really in the cards for something like the 7800X 3D. That's not what you get that CPU for. You get it for a purely gaming PC. This right here is more of a jack of all trades, master of some. I haven't actually really been able to test the 7950X 3D before this moment. So I can say what I see here, but I don't know what to compare it to. I don't have any context to compare it to here. But I'll say it probably did drop some of the frequencies because we were getting very close to the 89 degrees. That's the way it's designed to work. I think they already have FurMark installed. All right, let's go up to 1440 and just put the stress test. Now, one good thing about this type of case is that you have fresh air. All of the intake is directed right at the GPU. Your GPU temperatures should be no problem. And the Gigabyte Aero card, I can't get over how gorgeous this GPU is. This thing is like barely jumping up in temperature. We're gonna let it run for a little while, of course, but the GPU never went over 62 degrees, 62.1 degrees Celsius. This thing is very well cooled. You do not have to worry about GPU temps in the slightest with this PC. So yeah, good job on that. Skytech, Gamdias, because Gamdias case, Skytech built in it. Good job. Okay, well, Port Royal is ready to go. All right, let's run it. Look at this. Look at how good we did. This is good, actually. This is good to see. Overall, this thing is performing, at least in a ray tracing focused test like this one, better than the average. So I now have this on the screen, so I have a record of it, so that's nice. Let's just get all of that. Okay, now let's go back and we'll run the classic Time Spy. We'll run Time Spy Extreme. So we're good. We're still above average. Look at that. Average 13,549, 13,709 is what we got. Heck yeah. Look, my main gripe being that the issue with the AIO orientation, that's a thing, right? That has to do with longevity. It won't affect the performance necessarily, and that's what's happening here. Like the 7950X 3D is performing well. So is the 4080 when the temperatures are great on it. In both Time Spy Extreme and Port Royal, it performed better than average. So I got to give props where due. This thing is running really well. Let's go ahead and open up Cyberpunk. Graphics should be ray tracing ultra, texture quality high. Yeah, that's all defaults. DLSS. We'll go with it. Let's actually do that. Let's run it on auto, and then we'll run it without it. Okay, so we have our score here, 100 FPS average, and this is at 1440p with DLSS quality turned on. So there you have it. You're not going to come to these streams or reviews and see a ton of graphs. If you want to see graphs of how this hardware can perform, look for the individual hardware reviews like the 4080 and for the 7950X3D. There's tons of them out there. The point here is the overall package. And overall, everything's very good here. My current disposition is to, if you're getting one of these, any one of the flavors that we showed, that we looked at of the Prism 3, as long as you're not getting it with an AIO that has a pump in line, and you don't see many of those. Most of them will have the pump either in the radiator or on the CPU block. And in either of those cases, it wouldn't be at the very top of the loop here like it is in this case here. Even though they have that little bend in the tubes, it's not that drastic for being over above the pump. So as long as you're not getting one with that kind of AIO, then this configuration would work fine. The thermals were fine, whether or not I want those side fans to be intake or not. Doesn't matter. The numbers were fine. But for everyone who hung out, thank you so much. And for anyone watching this after the fact, thank you so much for being this late into the stream where you're hearing this. All right, guys, until next time. Take care.